My wife says we have to speak up when we talk.
Well, I'll do it.
Yeah, when I listened to it today, tonight,
She didn't make no mention of you.
Oh, yeah?
Well, yours not hard to
She-
do.
Red light on?
Yep, red light's on.
Is it?
Ham's a little hard to do.
Yeah, some are, yeah.
Yeah.
Watch what you start swearing about now.
Big ones that we can find.
That's research. Yeah, my doctor in Marsh, forever, but they called today and said they had a shot when they get here. I
If
did.
you can get there, get there.
We had
Got
a
there.
couple virtual ones. Well, I think they got better. We only did that.
We did virtual meetings from probably late March until late May. So we did it for 2 months. I want to say we did maybe 6 or 7 of them.
Oh, it didn't seem like that many.
I know. It seemed like it was a long time ago, too, doesn't it? It's-
Yes, it does.
Yeah, we did, didn't we? It was about 2 months worth.
yeah.
I'd like to call the meeting of the Tracy City Council for Monday, February 8th. To the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nobody do declaration?
George will do it tonight.
Becky will. Ask her.
Do the invocation.
Nothing.
Invocation.
Oh, an invocation? Praise God.
And heaven help us, or what?
Yeah, something like that.
Before we approve the agenda for tonight, we have 2 changes. One of them, I would like to move the mayor-council communication up before the public hearing, if that's okay with everybody here. Because I have something I want to talk to you about.
There's no public hearing, is there?
I mean, not public hearing, but the public comment, sorry. Is it okay with y'all?
Fine by me.
And then Eric has a resolution he needs to add.
Yeah, we have to add number 5 under A 2021-22. This afternoon, we received a communication from the Economic Development Administration about a grant request that we had put in for some additional money for marketing, and they're requesting some additional information. It's actually a good sign that I think there's a pretty good chance we're going to get some money, but they have to have a resolution from City Council approving the match, which is already in the budget, and it has to be done by next week. So this is the only time we could do it.
I'll approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, what I wanted to talk to you guys about is, I called Eric and we talked about this before because I feel that when the public has a public comment, that it's not right that we don't interact with them and comment back or see if we can answer some of their questions. So I want to change that. And I want to know how you guys feel about that.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up. I always been struck by the fact that the council, and this is going back a number of years, never made any response or comment after the public testimony, if there were some. And I just assumed that it was kind of a council protocol or maybe an unwritten rule or something that's just not how it was done. So, so I think it's good that we're talking about that.
Mayor, we did a little bit of research as well this afternoon, at your request, and as far as what other communities do and some other things like that. If you'd like to hear about it, I think Diane's got a little bit of history in that.
Please do.
Just to kind of tee it up a little bit, from our perspective, it's your choice in terms of how you handle these things. At the end of the day, we do believe that it's important to have public comment, at every meeting, because that ensures that everybody has an opportunity to have their say. But how you decide to handle it as a city council is completely at your discretion. And Diane, did a little bit of research, and I'll turn it over her for some information.
Okay, so back in 2017, this was discussed by the previous council at that time, how it should be handled. But today I made a couple calls to different cities. I called Slayton, Cottonwood, Springfield, Redwood Falls, and Worthington. Of those 5, 2 of them have public comments with a limit of 10 minutes total. So if there's 5 people there, they could talk for 2 minutes. 2 of them had no time limit, and 1 had no public comment at all. Of the 5, 4 did not discuss amongst the council after the public person spoke. They waited till the next meeting. 1 of them did not, and he indicated that that is due to the fact that they rarely have somebody there to speak at all. I did talk to the League of Minnesota Cities, and they reiterated what Eric had said, that it is up to the mayor and the council members how they want to handle public comment. But I did print off their website, and it does say that council members will only listen, not engage during the comment time. If questions arise because of the information learned from the public comments, the council can direct staff or specific council member to look into the issue and report back to the council at the next meeting. And that's the recommendations from the League of Minnesota Cities. As I said, back in 2017, the previous council had determined that it was beneficial to not address public concerns until the next meeting. And the reason for that was it gave them time to think about what was said, to research what they were talking about, and to have options and a resolution to the problem presented to them so that they had all the facts in front of them when making their decision. That was the reasoning for them doing it back in 2015. It was highly suggested by the League of Minnesota Cities to put together a policy, because that would be transparent to the public on how the public comment would be handled, as well as being consistent with all residents that come up here. It's handled in the same fashion for everybody, regardless of who they are. One of the cities, Slayton, I believe, has it right on their agenda how public comments will be handled. That way there's no confusion, there's no concerns by the public as to, how's the council going to handle this? If I bring a concern, are they going to vote on it? Are they going to discuss it? How will it be handled? So that is what I found out in my research.
Just want to add a couple of other nuances that are important for you to consider. We certainly do recommend, whatever you decide how you want to handle public comment, that it ought to be written down in some kind of policy that you all adopt as a group. That way, when I had a conversation with Tony Peterson over the weekend, and he basically said, well, in the past, it's been at the chair's discretion in terms of how you handle some of these things, and from our perspective, that creates some inconsistency that we would like to make sure that everybody is treated the same. The second thing that is important to consider as you talk through this is that there are some nuances in our charter that are important to point out. A lot of times you might be tempted as a council to take some action, right at that moment. Our charter says pretty explicitly in section 4 that if you are to take any action as a council, unless it is for an internal council procedure, that it has to be done by resolution, and it has to be a written resolution. And so in reality, the charter contemplates this idea that we would take time to think and put together some kind of action in a written form. It's one of the reasons why you're seeing resolutions on every action item now, and have, since I've, been the administrator, is because you're basically required to do it. And it's good practice, because then you really have it documented as far as what happened, and then you also give yourself some time to consider it. So, the idea of taking public comment and then coming back with, some kind of action if it's warranted, seems to make sense to us, both in best practices as well as how the charter handles it. So that was the information we collected this afternoon, Mayor. I know that you had requested some of that, and I really appreciate that, we get an opportunity to kind of, hear what you have to say. With that, that's our only. We don't have any recommendation in terms of how you do it, but those are kind of some parameters in terms of things you should consider.
I think it's a good idea to wait till the next council meeting to do anything about it. But I personally would like to be able to ask the questions so that I can start doing my own, without having to go back to them and ask them, just right out front, say, this is why you're doing this or whatever. But I understand the fact, and I think that makes excellent sense, that we do not act on it that night. Wait till the next meeting. But if you have a question on why do you think you want to stub your toe every week or whatever, at least we can find out. And then put it to rest one way or another at the next council meeting. That's just my second meeting thinking.
Sorry, Mayor, Council, I guess what I've seen here is they get up, they speak for 2 minutes, sit back down, we continue on with the agenda, it's all forgotten about. So I agree with George. I think we need to ask some questions and research it and bring it up at the next meeting.
Are we going to set a time limit on public comment time then?
Yeah, we need.
I mean, and
Otherwise we'd be here
even
all
the
day.
questioning period too.
Try
I mean,
to-
the people, we've said it, it's always been in the past 3 minutes. And then if we're going to ask questions, is it a 1 minute period that we're going to ask questions and an answer? Or are we going to 22 minutes and we're going to...
Well, I think we need to ask as many questions as we need to ask.
You need to,
But that should be done by Eric throughout the week and then transmitted to us.
So you're gonna have them come up here and then talk to Eric for the rest of the week?
No, we can ask
No.
we can ask a question or two, but if you want to start getting in depth on the thing, then that should go to Eric, because if we're going to do something on it, like he said before, we have to have a resolution.
Well, yeah, we definitely wanna,
But I mean, if we're going to
Ask
sit here and
questions
question
about
somebody
pleasing.
for 45 minutes, it's like,
no.
well, we're not gonna do it for that long, Dave.
I
I think
don't
we want some kind
say
of
that.
limit.
I think you need a time limit.
We
Yeah.
do need a time limit.
But I think we should have the chance to ask questions.
I'm not so concerned about the time it's going to take us to ask the questions. It's going to be the time it takes somebody to answer it. They could take another 5-10 minutes to answer that question to try to get more things included past their 3 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever.
So then should we
So-
say they have like a minute to answer our questions, or 2 minutes?
I say, to throw out numbers, let's leave it at 3, because when you're up there trying to voice your concerns, 3 minutes goes pretty fast. I'd hate to cut it down to 2. So if we would say 3 minutes for the person to voice their concern that they want to bring forward, and then we say 2 minutes for questions, and if further information's needed, then we can direct staff to do more follow-up. And we can give the staff the questions.
Sure.
We don't have to leave it totally in Eric's control as to what he follows up with other questions. We can say, these are the questions, but we don't have the time to go through this detail tonight. But we want the detail before the next meeting. Because I know at the training I went to when I became a member, the league did suggest that you can listen to their concerns, but you do not want to be responding and giving answers. It's one thing to ask questions and
Then
clarifications.
we can get information.
Yeah.
And come back with another.
And then I think the citizen that gets up there and says something at least feels like they're being heard and there's going to be some kind of follow-up. I mean, I say 3 minutes for them, 2 minutes for us, and then anything further, we direct the city staff to do further follow-up. And then we get back to them by the next meeting.
Do we want to leave it as public comments, or when do we want them to be like put on the agenda? Because if they get put on the agenda, then you would know what it's about, so that you'd have time to.
I have,
How do you do
I have,
that?
I have a suggestion for that. I don't think you ever want to eliminate public comment as a rule of thumb, because if you just make people try to get on the agenda ahead of time, people aren't going to be thinking about that, or they might just show up that day. You always want to have that open-ended piece. I have no concerns at all if you want to create some kind of request to put on the agenda form for public comment. And then if we had a specific thing that people wanted to comment on, we could put it on the agenda ahead of time if you want to, under public comment. But I do believe you've got to have that open, public comment, no matter what. Because the citizens have to have an opportunity to be on the agenda every single week.
Okay, so that's kind of not what I was going at.
Not the agenda,
I was going
your
at-
comment.
We do definitely need a public comment, but I'm just saying, like, when do you put them on the agenda and just leave them under public
Well, we
comment?
could.
Is what I was asking.
We could do this. If someone wanted to be put on that part of the agenda ahead of time to talk about a particular item, and as I hear what you're saying is no action to be taken at that time anyway, so we want to make sure we set that expectation. We could have them send an email, or we could have a form that they fill out. I don't know. Either we create some kind of procedure where with their name and the topic that they want to address, and if there's additional information they want to use to, add to it or something like that, we can create a form for that ultimately. I don't know what that would look like off the top of my head, but we can come back with an example, in a couple of weeks. But if someone wants to specifically talk under public comment and make people aware of it ahead of time, they could do that, or they can just walk in, that day of and do it too. But it's not bad to have a little bit of a heads up that somebody's going to come talk about something anyway. So, I mean, from my perspective, it's fine, and we can create a procedure for handling that if that's what you would like to do.
I think it just gives them two options. They can be on the agenda under public comment,
Yeah.
or they can still just show up if they don't have the
Yes.
foreplanning that they know they're going to want to be there for that public comment. They can
Yes.
still walk in the door and
Absolutely.
do it.
That's what I'm suggesting, and then we can create a procedure for making that happen for people.
I also like the idea of putting right on the agenda the time limits, because as time goes by, it's going to be forgotten. Right now, we have a few topics that people want to talk about and everything, but I'm hopeful down the road we'll get to where we're coasting for a while and we won't, and then it'll come back to, now how many minutes are they supposed to have? So I do like it just spelled out right on the agenda. 3 minutes for their comments, 2 minutes for council questions or verification.
My suggestion is this, is that, and we can take some direction tonight, and this is the kind of thing you can do with a simple motion because it's a procedural issue. But my suggestion is that we actually come back with a formal, written policy, that it says what it says on the agenda, how much time people have, how you get on the agenda if you're a citizen, what's going to happen with that information afterwards, how's the city administrator going to handle it, how much time you have, all those kinds of things. And then have you adopt it. in a couple of weeks so that there's no question about what it is. And, that's good for everybody because, when nothing's written down, it's hard to know exactly what you're supposed to do. So if you're okay with that, we'd be happy to do that.
I also like the idea that was mentioned, and I don't know if it was you or Jerry or what, but when they need to really get on this form of whatever it is, so that we get this stuff ahead of time. We have time to think about it a little bit too.
Yep.
Maybe a question will come to mind.
Yep.
If you only hear about it and then 13 seconds later that person's done, or 13 minutes, whatever, it's hard to come up with the proper, make sense questions.
Right.
So I think, just personally, we need to have them get on this form to be able to put something here. If you don't think of it until that day, then you're at the next council meeting.
Yeah, we can create that.
Just,
No, I
and
don't
that
think-
squeezes it up a little
No,
bit, but it
'cause-
gives us time to think about it, not make a knee-jerk
Yeah, but
response.
but the topic could be, I'm mad about the way Seth cut his lawn, and I just want to make sure the council knows about it. When Seth cuts his lawn on Sunday, and it makes me mad, so on Monday I want to show up and just comment about it. We still need to have that right too. Everything doesn't need to be on the form.
I think you need to have both, but I think maybe we should hopefully try to steer people more towards getting on the agenda.
Yeah. And then I would tell Seth not to cut
Instead
his
of the-
lawn on Sunday.
More on the
So if I'm
agenda instead
hearing
of the public
everybody,
comment, is that what we're saying?
everybody correctly, and maybe this isn't me, this should be you.
No, but
Somebody needs to summarize it.
you go right ahead, Jerry.
I think we need to give Eric the directive to come up with the policy and the form or the procedure, how people get put on the agenda and everything. We can vote tonight as to what we feel as far as the time and stuff like that. That can be just a vote, so that he has those details, so when you bring it to the meeting the next time, it's ready to go.
And Jerry, when you say agenda, you mean in the public comment?
Under the public
part?
comments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jerry, when you talk form, are you talking about people are going to pick up a form here and,
Well, that's where he was going to look
that's-
to see if
So in
there
other
would
words,
be
to get-
something
That's
either.
my role as the administrator, okay? You don't have to get into that level of detail as the council. You hire me to handle those kinds of details. So we'll create something, we'll bring it back to you for you to look at. If you don't like it, we can change it. But I don't think that's a level of detail you need to get in right now. It may be a form, it may be something online, it may just be an email, for that matter.
Yeah, I think there can be different means
Yeah.
because of people's comfortable. Some are comfortable on a computer. Some would much rather stop in here and grab a form, fill it out, because it's not going to be a detailed
No.
form. It would only take a couple minutes, and
Yeah.
I think there's going to be some different options of how they would get on
Yep.
it.
well, I feel we're going in the right direction, Mayor. We just need to put it together now. And
So I'll make the motion that the city administrator draft a policy, and that it include that the citizen has 3 minutes for their portion of their comment. We have 2 minutes for questions, verifications, and then if it's going to inquire more than that, we'll give the directive to city staff to do further follow-up with potential questions that we have. And can I make part of the motion be that it stay at the top of the meeting? So citizens don't have to come and wait till the end of the meeting, because we know some meetings were done by 7 o'clock. Some meetings were not done till 9 o'clock. I think we should still leave it towards the top of the meeting so the citizens can come, talk, then choose when they want to leave.
Agreed. I'll second it.
First and second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So, with that, we have a public comment, and I would hope that we could allow us to do that whole communication back and forth thing today with them.
You just had the motion, so you're good.
Okay. You can't hear me?
no.
So with that, anybody here from the public that would like to talk about something that is not on the agenda? Ken?
Pass those around if you want.
You just started your 3 minutes, Ken, or
No.
I guess it's up to you, whatever you want
not?
to do.
I'm gonna run the stop clock.
It was 3 minutes, 10 minutes.
I'll take another one.
Yeah, I guess I could do that, yeah. Sure.
Start your time.
I'm representing seniors tonight, and so that's who I'm speaking for. And the 3 minutes is woefully short for what I have to say. But I guess with that in mind, I guess you can hold up your hand and tell me to stop whenever you feel is appropriate. Please don't take any of the comments that I have personally. Some of them are maybe construed as differences of policy, but none of them are personal attacks, okay? The first thing is I'd like to thank you for the ground floor facility at the Eagles. The people with mobility issues certainly can thank you for that. It's a lot easier to get on the ground floor. Not everybody necessarily knows what we had at the MPC. Everything here, it pertains to short-term service. Nothing is long-term service. It's all short-term service. We have a certain group of people that play games. Could be 500, could be bridge, could be pool, whatever, okay? And bridge is typically played with 28 hands. And there are several bridge clubs that play throughout the week. And at least 4 hours is required to finish the game and have a short lunch. And I understand that 3.5 hours is what is being recommended to you for seniors to play, with a half an hour of cleanup time. And if we do that, the bridge people will certainly have to not finish a game. They'll all be probably part games is what will happen. At the multipurpose center, we started 15 minutes earlier actually than 4 hours, and then we just finished in time, okay? And remember that for lunch that the Eagles does not have any Culligan water either, and hard water does not make very good coffee, and the coffee makers don't last very long if you put hard water in them, so please keep that in mind as well. The staff person over there worked 4 hours in the afternoon, and they did not have a food handler's license, but they worked under the direction of a person that did have a food handler's license, and that was acceptable. Am I done?
Yeah, you're passed.
Keep going.
Okay.
Unless you want to hand it off to the next person so that we keep legit.
No, I just keep going.
Well, I guess you guys can decide whatever the hell you want to do, but you guys are headed in the wrong direction, I can guarantee you that.
Wait,
Keep,
Keep going,
there's
Ken.
the 2 minutes.
Keep going.
We have
Well, if
the,
everybody doesn't want me to,
No.
I mean,
no, we have the 2 minutes for
Yeah.
clarifications.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I
Go
think
ahead.
we can use our 2 minutes saying.
We need to
Go
hear
forward.
this. Please do it.
Well, I'm pretty disappointed with a lot of you already anyway, so. Like I said, don't take it personally, it's your policies. The food handler gave direction to the person working over there, and they were working under the direction of the food handler, and that was acceptable, and that's legal. And you can do the same thing at the Eagles. The person working in the afternoon can work under the direction of the person with the license, and that is perfectly acceptable. And we certainly wish that you would reconsider working over there without a lunch. I mean, throwing a bag of cookies on the table every day is not the best thing to do, okay? So a lunch is okay. Okay, so we'd like you to reconsider that. Some seniors over there, another group of seniors came in early in the morning. Very early, by 5:30 in the morning they started. There was no staff on duty at that particular time. The volunteers that worked the pancake, they were volunteers as well, working under the direction of the food handler's license. As a matter of fact, most of the equipment purchased by senior dining is from the pancake fund. And so that was a very valuable thing that they could do. Senior dining, typically around 18 people, provided with a hot meal. Some who qualified had reduced lunches. All the kitchen appliances that got moved over to the old liquor store belongs to senior dining. With LSS leaving town, we have a major hardship for seniors and for senior dining. Anxieties that develop from being alone can be huge. During a pandemic, no services are provided for morning or senior dining. If none are provided, the pressure becomes greater during this time, and we don't believe that there's reason for all this extra tension. It's unfortunate that LSS had to leave. We had another group called Golden Age, different group. They met 2 Saturdays a month. No staff on duty. They took care of their own thing. We had a second group that met on alternate Saturdays. Same thing. They cleaned up their own messes, took care of everything. 2 or 3 times a year, we had a $2 meal sponsored by LSS, and about 80 people attended. Since the city council verbally promised to take care of the seniors and take care of LSS, and since the city administration seems to be moving forward without any input from seniors about short service, and last week there was a lot of kind of work behind the scenes, working stuff out with trustees over at the Eagles. We're wondering which of these groups up here are going to be cut out of the service, because it looks right now like several will be. We don't believe when the city council promised to take care of LSS and seniors that all this would happen. We thought there was going to be a similar amount of services provided. Now we know that there's some issues with liability, but I hope we're not blaming all of our problems on the insurance company. But if you need more staff, maybe you should hire a little bit more. We're not talking about that much difference, really. We're nowhere near the annual budgetary expense that we had at the old MPC. It just seems like in the last 2 months, seniors have gotten more bad news than good news. And maybe our faith and our city leaders is a little bit shaken. Thank you. Again, don't take my comments personally.
So, can I ask a question now, or?
Yeah, as part of your policy, you can do that.
So, I hear what you're saying, so possibly where we as a city council went maybe a little bit wrong, won't say all wrong, but we did get enough information from the seniors.
Right.
So
That's what I'm saying.
That's something that I think should be fairly easy corrected. I don't know where we're at with the situation at the Eagles, if they're going to be open to this. But until the governor turns us loose, we still have a little bit of time to work out the details, I'm thinking.
We're 2-3 months down the road, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So maybe that's something we need to think about as a council. How do we take care of some of these needs that we took away from the seniors, but we really didn't. COVID did. But when it gets opened up, then we did. So right now,
we believe that there should have been a little committee discussion before going ahead and making all the deals. It wouldn't have been that difficult to do, I don't think, and some of it maybe could be averted.
you're making good sense there, Ken. We just gotta
Mayor,
work it out.
council, I would like to see, so we can get this thing dissolved, I would like to see the seniors go back to a committee, go act in a group, pick 2 or 3 reps, get together with the Eagles, get together with Jeff and Eric, and work this thing out. I do not want to see this thing go over into Plan B.
Refresh my memory, Plan B.
Permanent.
Oh,
I think it needs to be worked out.
Anyone else have any questions?
When you
I don't
talked to
think so.
the Eagles, Eric, did you talk to, I thought you were going to talk to them about more hours.
No. First of all, I would say that we haven't decided anything. Nothing. Because this is months away. We have a lot of really more urgent things, that as a staff that we're working on, and that's not to diminish the importance of this for, folks that unfortunately have suffered greatly under this, pandemic. But there's a lot of assumptions about what has been done or decided or what. And I made an offhand comment because one of you asked me 2 weeks ago, when are they going to be open? And the answer is in the afternoon, and that's based on our budgetary considerations. We do not have the ability to have a kitchen because of the obvious reasons in terms of it not being a commercial kitchen. That means we can't do breakfast. It also means that we have a certain amount of staff that's limited that we can offer at it because Linda only works 20 hours a week. And so there's some limitations in your budget, that was adopted by the City Council in terms of how we're going to be offering the service. That being said, we didn't make any decisions. We just went ahead with the parameters that we were given, under these circumstances to try to do this quickly. And so what I would suggest is, because it's your policy that you just adopted, is that we take the questions, in this letter and come back, with answers about what we can and cannot do, or, based on the regulations at the next city council meeting. That'll be my suggestion. And we will do everything we can to keep things as open as possible, but we have some limitations, we'll figure that out. And we're happy to work with people. We have worked with people, frankly. We met with all kinds of people. There's literally nothing in this letter that I didn't personally already know because I learned from a senior. So, we'll continue to work with people. So that's per your policy what we would do in this particular case, is we would take this information, answer the questions, work with people, and come back to you in a couple of weeks. So that's what we'll do.
My question, Eric, is who's going to be working with you on this? Is it just you and the Eagles, or is it you, Eagles, and some of the
Or
seniors?
Jeff will probably be involved
Okay,
too.
you, Jeff, Eagles, and the seniors?
We'll involve whoever wants to be involved.
Well, I think they should be.
But at the end of it, they have been. They have been
Well,
council
they
members.
apparently weren't when you were talking to the Eagles, Eric. There wasn't any seniors involved in that one.
No.
Audrey's the one who suggested the Eagles to me in the first place, Ron.
I understand that, but I'm saying when you talked to the Eagles, was any seniors with you?
I haven't personally talked to the Eagles. Jeff did that.
Okay, was there any
I
senior?
don't know. I wasn't there. I can't speculate on that.
I don't know how we can discuss it with the Eagles when we're not discussing it with the
You know,
seniors.
I feel like I'm under attack here, because we've done absolutely everything we can to work with people. We came back with temporary solutions to help solve problems. We have researched issues. We have done a focus group with seniors. We created a community meeting, a community group to work through this issue at your direction. I've met with the Golden Age Club.
No, you have not.
I have met with Shirley Anderson as a representative of the Golden Age Club. I have met with the Senior Dining Group. It was constituted before. All of this is accurate. We've been doing nothing but working with seniors since the very, very beginning on this, before we even decided to sell the multi-purpose center, at your direction. Now, some of you weren't on council at that time, but that's what happened.
If I could just
I
speak.
I think we need to move forward with the public comment, because I think before we can even put together what we want
do
Eric
the
to
rest
do, we have to hear what the rest of the people have to say.
Okay. Audrey, would you like?
My biggest concern has, and from the very beginning, there has been no communication. Yes, we've had a couple of meetings, but there's been nothing as to questions of what exactly did you have when the multipurpose center was operating? What programs did you offer? What activities did you have? What were your hours? I mean, it's evident just when he met now with the Eagles, and we were limited to 3 hours. You can't do that in 3 hours' time. All we're asking of the council, give us what we had. That's it. And communicate with us. Ask us questions. We're more than happy to meet with you anytime. But just communicate.
Thanks, Audrey. Shirley?
When Mom and I met with Eric, it was right after that news article came out, and the first thing he did was come to the table and he said that whole article was lies. It was not, okay? That was the only time we met with him. It was not to discuss anything about what was going to happen with the center as far as what we were going to be promised, okay? And that has not been discussed at all, okay? And I agree with Ron. The seniors, we had a meeting at the Eagles this last week, okay? Those people, we need to be involved. This committee that Eric has formed, he formed that himself. And there's only 3 seniors on it, including George. That makes 4, okay? But the seniors are the ones that are losing out here. We are the ones that, this building was taken away from us, and it would have been nice if there had been some research done to this before that building was sold, because it was actually given to the seniors. And the only reason it was under the title of the city, because it was sold to the city for $1. And you guys were supposed to do the maintenance and the upkeep, because we knew, the seniors knew that they couldn't do that, okay? And I've had several people talk to me, by the way, about having a fundraiser so we could actually put some money toward having the senior center. Okay, when I took Mom to get her COVID shot, I had 3 people talk to me about having a fundraiser. I went to the football game, or the basketball game the other night, and Thad Lessman said, let's have a fundraiser. Keep it on. We need the senior center. We need a senior center. And we were talking about, if we don't have a senior center, where are the retired people going to go? They're going to go to Marshall. That's what's going to happen. You have absolutely left us with nothing. We have the library, it's paid for. We have the pool, it's paid for the kids. You lose money on those all the time. What happened to the seniors? We're out in the cold. We're ready to play cards the last of March. We're getting our COVID shots, and Mom and I are already calling people. You guys need to make a decision about what we're going to be able to do. That's it.
Thank you, Shirley. Anybody else want to talk? You know what?
You have a question, by the way?
No, but I have a question for Ruth. So, can the Eagles, will they ever think about doing like the pancake thing like they used to do over at
I'm sorry, I can't.
Will they think about doing the
pancake like they did before? Like if they had volunteers that came in and did it?
Well, then everybody has to, I don't think they would object. We'd have to get it set up and, you know, the money that we proposed, we're thinking on the afternoons, but I'm certain they're open. And we just want it as a temporary.
Right.
Yeah,
We're not looking at.
It won't be a long
We
term.
just want to be the Eagles. Our motto is people helping people, and so when things come up in the community where people need something, we try to help out. And that's our point right now. So, and I think, you know, if you have staff, or I'm not going to be able to do it.
Well, you know what? You probably won't have to do that anyway because it's not open anyway. I said right now we don't have to worry about that because it's not open, but
Eagles is
now
open.
until we
It
get
could be
it.
shortly.
Eagles is open.
Yeah. Oh, the Eagles is open.
Eagles is open.
Well,
Yeah.
the only question I
All the
have,
restaurants are open.
That's
question
true.
I have on all
I
this,
went to Bonnie and Clyde's the other Friday, and it was totally packed. I mean, it was packed. Every seat was full.
So can you find out what about? But like the city didn't staff. How would that work? The city didn't staff the pancake thing. It was just
No.
volunteers.
Volunteer.
do we have to worry
But
about a
those-
food license
but
then, though?
Pardon?
Do we have to worry about a food license if we start having pancake breakfasts and stuff?
No, not
think
as far
this
as I
needs to
know,
go to
because
a-
I have
This
This is
Our
more
kitchen
than
is-
what public
kitchen
comment
is
should
state
be. I
approved,
think we need
and I
to.
have a food handler's license. And I do not, they changed the regulation on that a little bit. It used to be the food handler had to be there. I can appoint someone and they can be the person in charge. I have to appoint someone that would be a person in charge, which would be the person basically that's doing the cooking.
Okay.
I'm just going to make an observation. You know, I spent 9 years on a city council, 8 years on a county commission. This is why you have limits on public comment. You know, this is a very difficult situation when you have engagement between multiple council members and multiple members of the public and people talking all at once. It just isn't really a good situation. We want to be able to answer these questions, you know, and I'm going to come back with information. You know, I really am, but it makes it hard because I don't even know what I'm supposed to do at this point because it's just a bunch of people talking.
Well, since we said we weren't going to make a decision during the public comment, I don't think we can go back on that right now.
I would just say answer
But-
these questions currently and gather any other information you can get.
And we as council members can come with our own suggestions or whatever. You know, we'll direct Eric to, you know, do his investigation, but it's not like we cannot come with our suggestions. We can contact you individually. We can't meet as a group, but we could contact you individually. For example, like
Sure.
if I would want to say, Okay, we have a committee formed for the long-term goal of a new center, but we really don't have anything formed for the short temporary part.
That's right.
So that's where I could call you and say, you know, Eric, I want you to consider.
You could
that we
ask
have-
questions. You could ask me questions and I could answer them. I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you can have a conversation in a couple of weeks about this, you know, based on those things. That's how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, instead of us having a conversation right here when we already said we're not going to make any decisions.
What we're doing tonight is what 3 members of the seniors, the Eagles, and Jeff and Eric should be doing. And then Eric should bring that back to us. That's what should happen here, instead of what we're doing tonight. Let's get it down to where there's 3 members of the seniors, the Eagles, Eric and Jeff sit down at a round table and get this thing figured out.
Who's going to pick those 3 members of the seniors? Because
Those guys.
we're
Those
already
guys right out here.
getting heat
What's
of
that?
we're already getting heat of the seniors that were chosen for the long-term committee.
You're getting heat, is that what you said?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, so they didn't want us on that committee?
No.
No, I feel like we're getting heat that you guys don't feel like you're represented well enough on that
Well, I
committee.
think in the short term, I think we have.
The committee was on the long
In the
term.
long
Yes.
term, we're not.
We're talking short term here.
No, I understand that.
Your long-term committee is here because Audrey, Ken and I are.
Yeah,
on
let's
it.
move on.
That's it.
Yeah, it's,
That's only the 3.
So how about we just leave it this way? You seniors pick 2 people or 3 people that you want representatives for, and then get a hold of Eric and,
Works for me.
Eric and the Eagles.
is that okay, Eric?
Yeah.
Okay. You guys okay with that? Okay. Moving on.
Are we done then?
I have one more question. On the liquor store, by the way, the west wall was hit, okay? And I was under the impression, I heard that there was insurance on that wall. And I don't know if there was a payment or a check that came from that person that hit the wall, or how much it was. But
I don't know. I'll find out.
what was it?
Eric will
And
find
is
out
it
too.
enough
I thought
to,
it was in a minute. It was in one of the minutes.
I think Shane can answer that.
and is it
Correct,
enough
Shane?
to repair the wall? Is it enough to remodel? Is it enough to tear down the building?
We'll get an answer to
We'll
that
get
question.
that answer
Yeah.
for you.
Yep.
Do we have approval of the consent calendar?
Thank you for being patient with us, okay? Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
I'll make a motion to approve the January 25th minutes, the municipal accounts payable with breakthrough beverage, October 1st library minutes, April through January fire relief minutes, and January 4th planning minutes.
Look at that.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
We have to,
Oh, yeah, we have to do
Do we
roll
do the
call.
roll call?
you said with breakthrough, didn't you?
I said with, but then, well, I suppose,
Then I just stay out of this one.
Yep.
But then I'm not approving the rest of the stuff, so.
well, then you make this motion.
I think his has to be separated.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar without breakthrough beverage.
I'll second it.
First and second, can we have roll call, please?
Koopman,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Tell,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Landager,
Aye.
Teagues,
Aye.
Mayor Coleman.
Aye.
Now I'll make the motion to approve with breakthrough beverage.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Schmidt,
That was
breakthrough
Schmidt.
beverage.
Oh,
Aye? Yes.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Amanda
aye.
Tell?
Aye.
Hillman?
Aye.
Eric Carmen?
Aye. Staff report? You want to go first, Eric?
I'm the only one, actually, on the staff report.
There you go.
Because Jeff can't be here tonight. I just had a couple of minor things I wanted to report on. During the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, we had stopped doing late fees and shutoffs for water. We believe that a year now, what we're seeing is we don't really see that there's any issues with, people being unable to pay their bill or anything like that. And so our plan is to begin, going back to our previous procedure at this point, where we would have late fees and shutoffs at certain times. And so we'll have to communicate to the public. It's not going to start immediately, but it is going to be starting with the next cycle after this one. Also want to let you know that on the Anderson building, we had spent some money, to clean that up because the bid was too high to knock it down. It is now coming up on its 5th year of back taxes, which means it's going to go into a tax lien sale. And Matt Gross and I had talked about it, and we believe that we've got to file a judgment now for what we have, because if it goes into a tax lien sale, we're never going to see that money anyway. And so our plan is to file for a judgment for about $21,000 for the money that we've spent on that building so far. And then we may end up with that building anyway. I don't know, depending on what this situation looks like. But I wanted to close the loop on that. Kyle's here, actually, and Shane and I have been meeting about the pond decommissioning project that I mentioned to you before. We've got some better ideas of what the cost might be, we'll have to figure out how we're going to pay for it, but know that that's coming within about a month at this point. We're going to have a discussion. Now, here's why this is important, is because it's going to be millions of dollars any way you cut it to do this. And we have some limited places we can get that money from. One of the places is the money that we've already got for the Phase 3 and Phase 4 projects the Phase 3A, 3, and 4 phases of the street projects. And so depending on what we see, we might have to reface some of these improvements in order to get this pond decommissioning done. Or we're going to try to go out and get some additional grant money from RD, which is also a possibility. I just want you to know that that's coming because it's going to be an important discussion, because it could change how we describe our projects to our citizens. The last thing I want to tell you is, and this is important for the public too, because we've talked about the hangars previously at the airport and wanted to get them built by 2022. We learned in the last 2 weeks that we don't think that MnDOT's going to be able to give us any money this year for the grading, which is what we had anticipated in the budget. We can't afford to do that by ourselves, so we're probably going to have to push that till next year. Our hope is that we can grade and still build the buildings if we can get the hangar loan in 2022. That's still the plan at this point, but we had talked about grading this year, and I don't think that's going to happen because it doesn't look like we're going to get that grant. I won't know for sure until next week. We have a meeting with them and Bollock, with MnDOT and Bollock, to talk about it, but I didn't want you to be surprised. But I'll let you know for sure what happens on that. We do think that the rest of the things that are on the capital plan will happen this year, but it looks like that grading piece is not going to happen this year. Doesn't necessarily affect our timeline long term, like I said, but in the short run it will. Before I go into the quick presentation that I've got, Jeff was going to be here tonight to talk about the Lyon County EDA. They've had a couple of meetings to discuss this. There's a memo in your packet that talks a little bit about what have happened at the last 2 meetings. But ultimately, it looks like that they're moving forward with some kind of county EDA structure. They do not know yet, 1, how it's going to be funded, and 2, what the representation on the board looks like. They've delegated those two questions to a small group of people. Jeff is one of those people as to the smaller group, which is good because, then we know our interests are going to be, served on that committee. But they are moving ahead. At some point, they may ask us for some money. I don't know. I think it's very possible that could be the case. But it's evolving and moving along. If you have any questions, just ask Jeff. But I don't know much more than that at this point on that issue.
Didn't the county put money into their budget?
They put, I think, $75,000 into it for 2 years or 3 years, something like that. So yeah, they have some money into it, and they're probably going to end up hiring a person. But those are the kind of details that they've delegated to this smaller committee that Jeff is a part of. But there's some things that are really important to them in terms of it being countywide and a whole variety of other things. So we'll see where it goes, I guess. At this point, we need to continue to stay engaged. But we think it's going to happen and probably happen this year. Okay. Any other questions about any of that stuff?
I have a question about the ponds.
Yeah.
So when are we gonna know like how many million? Like when it's like
Our estimate right now is about 3.6 million. We're going to go out and do some more sampling to determine if, the issue is that we got really high bids because people didn't know what was there. And so we plan to go out and do some more sampling to narrow that down a little bit. But that's where we're at currently. Our first step is we have to create a plan, and we think basically land apply, is what we're looking at ultimately. But how much and where, those kinds of things haven't been worked out. But the first thing we'll do is we have to submit a plan to the state, so we'll have to bring back a plan to you to approve to send to the state. And ultimately, there's a letter that was sent to the mayor back in October, not you, Mayor, the previous mayor, that kind of outlined some concerns that they had, and we're going to need to write a response to that. And so that's kind of where we're at in the process right now. And Kyle is here. Is there anything you want to add to that, or did I get it all right?
You got a pretty good summary of it. Yeah. That's where we're at in the process right now, gathering a little bit more information to get better numbers. But where we kind of feel, based on the plan and the discussions that we've been having with the MPCA and what we've been coming up with so far, that we're right in the right neighborhood there with the 3.6.
And that's without like finding land to spread that on and that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's just to, yes. Our hope is we can find, we have some farmland of our own that we can use, but we'll need more than that, about 400 acres, and so we'll have to find some farmers who are interested in taking it. And it's sewage, so it's nutrient enriched. It probably is, pretty good on a field as long as you're not dumping plastics and things like that on it. And that's partly what we need to figure out. So
there has to be grant money out there for this.
Yeah, we
look the MPCA there's got to be grant.
You've had the most recent discussion.
Yeah, the most recent discussion we had was with rural development, and we think there's potentially some money there. It's the same source of money that we're using to get our grants for the water and sewer street project. So we think there's potentially some money there. They usually like to combine grants and loans, and it's based on your, the income of your community and the size and things like that as a formula. So with that, don't ask me exactly the formula because I only barely understand it. But yeah, we think there's probably some money. The other thing that Shane had a really good idea too is that because it's adjacent, it's actually on airport property. And because it's an attractant for birds, and because it's an area that they would like to feed on, and airports and the FAA, they don't like birds because they get in the engines of planes, and so we think that it's even possible maybe the FAA might give us some money to be able to decommission this in a way so that it isn't isn't used for this purpose. So we're going to try several different avenues, and that's one of the reasons why we haven't brought it fully back to you yet, because we don't know exactly what all those are. But it's a continuing conversation, and it's going to be a combination of those grants, more money from RD, and maybe repurposing some dollars that we have left for the Phase 3 street project. We originally had intended to fund this with Phase 3B, but we think that this is a higher priority because the MPCA is telling us we need to get this fixed. And we don't want them to shut us down, because then we wouldn't be able to issue any more permits, and that would be bad. So we may be stuck having to do this sooner than we had originally planned, which is why we need to maybe look at the phasing of the project.
So the bottom line is that there's no negotiation on this. The state regulators are adamant that it can't stay the way it is.
That's correct. Yes. There's no negotiating with them. You might be able to negotiate the timing of all of this, and the time frame, but as far as it happening, no. There's no negotiation with this.
So is there farmers around the ponds where we could spread this?
I think potentially, yes.
So
we haven't explored
as far
that.
as the size of the acreage to do this?
We need about 400 acres.
400
I think we can find 400.
You did that calculation, or?
Well, yeah, we do. I mean, that was kind of the discussion. It depends on whether it's soybean or corn. I guess.
Yeah, you should come
Thank
up here.
you.
Yeah, the calculations we do have, if I recall, it is kind of in that 350 to 400 acres, depending on whether it's soybeans or corn for land applying. And there has been some past discussions, and we've taken a look at this between the city's tillable acreage around the airport there. The site itself, which is 40 acres of ponds that once it's filled in, it's going to be something to use that flat ground there. And then there has been some past discussions with some of the local farmers, one or two of them, that seemed like they were open to that idea of using their land.
Is this liquid or dry?
Dry.
Dry?
It's pumped down and dried out now. Yep.
It's dried out?
Yep. Well, as dry as it can be. It's kind of a basin.
How you're gonna?
Yep.
Is it liquid?
That's something that has been part of the longer term too. That Shane had talked about one of the last times that they pumped down, I think, 3 out of the 4 ponds, and then had to take a break to be able to pump down the last one over the last after October of last year. But right now everything's like I said, as dry as it can be, I guess.
I'm just asking the question as a farmer, in case one would be listening, at least they know what we're talking about.
I guess the most economical solution that we're kind of taking a look at the most closely is to land apply that dried solids, and you'd have to disc it in or plow it in too, and then there's just certain rates that you're able to, depending on how much nutrients are in the solids that are there. You can apply it at different rates to different fields. So it also depends on the farmer's field, what nutrients are in that too. So there's a couple different tests that need to get done and samples. But yeah, that's kind of the goal.
So that's at earliest a fall project.
Right.
Yeah. At the earliest. We actually think that the first thing we have to do is get the plan approved by the state. We don't think this is going to take place until 2022.
Okay.
We got time. At the earliest, 2022.
We have to get the plan in.
We have to get the plan in.
MPCA is anxious for.
That's what the MPCA is anxious for. That's correct. Yes. Yes.
And is there a company that will do this with tankers or however they do it, George?
Oh, don't ask me.
I mean, are you going to have to?
Yes, we're going to have to issue. We'll issue an RFP, which you'll approve the award to after when we're ready to do the project. In fact, we already did that once, which is why we didn't move forward, because the bids were so high.
So it'd be nice if we could get it close, so there isn't travel involved here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's all I have on that. The last thing is just a presentation. Mayor, you had asked a question about, the administration, department essentially, and what they do. And I thought, you know what, that's something we should talk a little bit more about and explain what it is that this department does. I think there definitely are some misconceptions, and part of that is our fault. It's self-inflicted, because if you look at the website, which I hadn't really looked at in too much detail on this section, it doesn't really represent everything the way that it really is. And as I understand it, that's like 4 or 5 years old anyway. So a lot of the stuff changed well before I got here, but certainly we've made some adjustments too. The other thing that it's important for people to know is that our motor vehicle transactions are up quite a bit over the last year, and that's because everybody else is taking appointments, and so if you can't get an appointment somewhere else, you're going to walk in here, because we're about the only walk-in place that you can get. And that brings about $84,000 to our general fund in terms of profits, and so in reality we're paying for at least one of those people directly because we offer this service. And the other thing that is kind of a misconception is that I think previously sometimes it was easy for the city administrator to kind of operate as a de facto head of the department. In reality, your city administrator should be doing some other things. And if you're just focused on that one department, you really can't manage the entire operation. And so that's a bit of a stylistic change that you've seen with me. So here's what the staff is going to look like. The new director who starts a week from tomorrow, his name is Krista, which is confusing because we already have another Krista. Thank God one of them's a K and one of them's a C. I don't know how we're going to differentiate between them, but we got
1 and 2.
I guess. Now, Peggy will end up taking on a role where she takes on a lot of those other administrative pieces, and I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit more in the presentation. And we have 2 finance clerks, and they handle the counter. Peggy spends some time at the counter too. The deputy clerk, which is Diane, is not a member of the department and does not spend any time down there. She does some of the duties described, but in reality she reports directly to me as the deputy clerk, and then as administrative assistant ultimately as well. And I'm not a member of the department. So we have those 3 right now, and then we're adding the 1. So what do they do? Well, first of all, you've got all the financing and accounting functions, accounts payable, accounts receivable, the reporting, utility billing, cash receipting, all the general ledger stuff, purchasing, and things like that. And as you know, we're implementing a new accounting software right now, and that's been an adventure. The deputy registrar, which is projected to bring in that $85,000 almost to the general fund. That's through our Department of Natural Resources, the DMV, the driver's license, all the things that you get, for that service. What they do ultimately is provide customer service for virtually everything. And my intent is to try to drive all of the customer service that direction anyway. So like building permits as an example. Shane and I have had some discussions about how we handle that now. A lot of times people will call Shane directly for a building permit. Well, we really would prefer to them to call the office so that they can process the paperwork, rather than Shane directly, because Shane gets pulled about 6 ways to Sunday anyway. And secondly, we're going to be changing our process on building permits anyway, because we have the new software is included in that. Our hope is that it can be more online, and ultimately we want all customer questions to come to the office. The other thing that's happening with this new software that we purchased is that utility service orders are going to get a lot more efficient, because right now what we do is somebody calls in, we fill out a piece of paper, we fax it over to the office, over to Public Works. Shane kind of reviews it and decides when they're going to take care of it. Then they go take care of it, and then they have to follow up. It's this kind of really slow, paper-intensive process. The way it's going to work when we implement the new utility service orders, anytime you've got somebody need to come out and work on something, literally it'll all be electronic. So someone will call in, we'll put it in the system, it'll automatically be uploaded to a tablet, an iPad or something like that they have. They will go out and take care of, and it'll be scheduled so they know when they're supposed to go out to do the service order. So when someone calls, they'll say, well, I'm available at 2 o'clock on Tuesday. Okay, well, we can schedule for you for 2 o'clock. They'll know exactly when they're going to come, and they'll just go out and do it, and then close it all out, within the software itself. Much more efficient process. So driving that customer service to that office, Peggy's really good at that anyway. I mean, she spent a lot of time, at U.S. Bank working on customer service, and we're lucky to have her, and it's going to get better that way. Facilities management, the janitorial staff, all the scheduling of city facilities, maintenance and things like that has also not have a home. What surprised me when I first got here is that about half the city staff reported to the city administrator. Well, that's not really efficient. You can't have 15 people reporting to you. You can't keep track of all of those people. So this is going to be a responsibility that will be part of this department that wasn't previous. The human resources part of it, a lot of this is things that in some cases are being done by other people or not being done at all. Peggy does payroll, we do the benefits administration, but we kind of leave the training up to individual departments. Well, we want Shane's operation or Jason's operation to focus on their operations and not worrying about where the next training is supposed to be. So Peggy can be that person that tracks all those things and says, okay, well, your certification for your water wastewater certificate is up. You need to have these continuing education credits at this time, and you just schedule it, and then Shane knows that that's just going to happen. And it's one less thing that he has to worry about, so he can focus on the public works side of things. Employee performance and recognition. We don't do any of this at all. We don't do performance appraisals. We don't recognize people for good things that they did. Maybe we ought to have a Employee of the Year program or something like that. We thought about Employee of the Month when we realized that everybody would win it after about 2 years. So, maybe that's not going to work. But and council members are not eligible, just so you know. But we need to recognize people when they do good things, and we need to help people continue to do better at their jobs. Risk management is, things like insurance. I was talking to Peggy today. We underinsured our fire trucks, and that meant that the fire trucks, we had to go out and get a $250,000 loan from the League of Minnesota Cities in order to buy the fire trucks when they were damaged in the flood. Well, we got to stay on top of that stuff, and we're coming up on our insurance renewal now, and Peggy says to me today, she says, well, I've got titles for vehicles that aren't on our insurance list, and we've got things on our insurance list that I don't have titles for vehicles for. So we don't even know if we're insuring the right vehicles. We've got the old liquor store insured for $600,000, and we've got the newest liquor store insured for $200,000. Well, that doesn't make any sense. These are the kinds of things that if you don't stay on top of, and you don't find a home for, they will come back and bite you at the times that you least want them to. Most of the time, they just kind of skate along. You don't think about it. But when a fire truck goes down and you got to get a loan for $250,000, it takes a big hit. Workers' comp, unemployment, information technology, all of those kinds of things. So this department is really critical. Which is why we need, ultimately why we need lots of good leadership there. It's critical to the success of the entire operation. It's the central hub for all internal and most external customer service. And they can't provide good customer service when they're overwhelmed. I mean, you've seen the lines out the doors out there, and that's what's been happening lately. And we can't move forward without, the financial system and efficient procedures. And when they are more efficient, they can take on work from other people so that they are not as overwhelmed. So what we're doing now is that we're implementing some software about. We've got the new counter, which we think is some better workflow. New department head to increase capacity. Peggy then will be able to take on some additional work which will help make the operations more efficient. In the future, there's some specific things that we're going to be doing. We've got to do a procedures manual for the entire city, ultimately. Some cross-training so people know, so that, we have a situation now where Peggy or April doesn't know how to do Krista's job and Krista doesn't know how to do April's job. But what happens if one of them is on vacation? We're in trouble then at that point. So we've got to do some things like that. Less paper, which is going to give us some better tracking, tackle some neglected responsibilities, and improve reporting and financial tools so that you can make better decisions as a city council. Ultimately, that's kind of where we're at right now and where we are in the future. And I'll take the blame. And we probably should have updated the website. And so when people look at it and say, "Well, is that all you guys do?" No, but we're not really doing a good job of communicating to the public what it is that we do. And so we are going to be updating the website. That's another project. But ultimately, that's where we are with this department. Are there any questions about that? Was this helpful?
I think it sounds like a really good plan. I got the responsibilities designated. I was a little skeptical personally last fall when you started talking about having this new position, but I can see really that this is going to save the city money in the long run and make for a much more efficient operation. And when you talk about customer service, every time I've been to City Hall in the last few months, there really are. There's always several people sitting out in the hallway waiting, and that's just not very good customer service. So hopefully this will help with that. So I think it looks like a good plan.
I agree. So Erie, when people are out here waiting, the other day I was out here waiting to see April, and April was the only one working on the license that day, and the other booth. Why couldn't we have opened that other booth up and put someone in there so we could speed this up?
There's a couple. I don't know the specific timing. There's a couple of potential reasons why that might be. One is that those two workstations don't do the same thing.
Yep.
One of them is for just driver's license. So probably the one that wasn't open is just for driver's license, and the other one is for the other licensing piece. And so we can't use the same computer for the same thing.
I was just wondering. I know April was doing the license plates, and the other one was driver's license.
Yeah, and that's the way the computers are set up to do that. And that's part of the MinDrive, who we use their software and their system and everything else. And so we're kind of tied in quite a bit to how we do it just based on them. Now there are times where you will see, well, some people might say, well, one person's out here and the other person's out there, not at the counter. Why can't they serve me? Well, they might be able to, and in some cases we do, but in reality they also have other responsibilities they have to do too. And I know the last month has been tough because we've had people, literally all week, Krista's been sitting in training to learn the new computer software to do the utility billing that went out today. And so it took an entire week of training to learn how to use that system so she could do that. And so she was kind of indisposed, essentially for most of the week. And the same thing is true with all of them. They have other responsibilities, and they might have something they have to do at that moment. And that's one of those things where we had to send out the utility bill this week. So that's just what happened in that particular case. I can't speak for the day specifically, but there's a lot of reasons why. I think that we could probably get better at that. How quickly we process a transaction, or maybe we need to have some kind of, numbering system. We've talked about, do we need to do some appointments for some of the time? I don't know. I'm hoping, my plan is when we get the new person in here, that's one of the things that Peggy can help us with. How can we get more efficient with serving customers?
I also think you need to put more chairs out there for customer friendly, because there was probably 4 or 5 of us standing up.
We could do that.
That's a good idea.
I
Yeah,
think
we can put more chairs out. Yep, that's not a problem.
It's too bad that, like, each station can only do one certain thing.
I know, it's ridiculous.
But you also have to keep in mind that there are data privacy issues involving motor vehicle and driver's license. So if you get too many people in there, the data privacy is going out the window. So really, you have to be conscious of that too.
And, you know, we're limited, you know, we're not a large county that has, 25 stations or something like that. And we don't, one of the things that I wish that we knew more about is we had more data on stuff like this. We don't even know how long the average person waits because we don't track it. We could do that. It would take a little bit of an effort or system to do it. You know, I'm used to waiting quite a lot, in larger cities that I've lived in. I've waited for 3-4 hours to get my driver's license.
What would the advantage be to know that, though?
Because then you can measure your success. So if I knew that the average was 5 minutes, I could say, okay, well, let's try to do 4. And what can we do to get 4? And then you try something, and then you measure that and say, okay, well, did that help us get to 4? Or did it make it worse? So, and that's generally true. That's called, George, by the way, there's a government term for that. It's called performance management. And Peggy actually told me this last week, I didn't even know it, that she spent a whole year doing nothing but that for U.S. Bank. She would go around to different places and she would help them get more efficient in what they were doing. And so my hope is that we can do some of that.
Well, and then just to go along with that, the day I was down here and you sat and laughed at me for a little bit. I mean, there were 8 people waiting out here. The one woman in front of me, she goes, I've been here for 45 minutes. She goes, but I don't care. Where else can I go? But then it was also that there was 2 people in there, and I was standing in the doorway and could watch in there. And it's like, well, April was on the phone, Peggy was on the phone. They had to call the state because what the people had didn't match up with what they were trying to do. So it's not always necessarily that the office is slow and behind. Sometimes the paperwork that people have isn't correct for some reason, or the state isn't recognizing it, so they can't issue their tabs or issue new titles or whatever. So it's like it's not always the office's fault.
Yeah, and then it gets stuck in the queue, and you can't move on to the next transaction, so you clear that one.
Yep.
And their software has been giving us trouble anyway, because they just implemented a new software in December. So it's been difficult because we remodeled the office, we put in a new financial software, MinDrive put in their own software. I mean, it's like we just threw everything but the kitchen sink at them all at one time. And so I appreciate everybody's patience on that, but we'll get better, for
The
sure.
day I was there, April was waiting on a fella, and you got to appreciate this. This guy wanted 20 tabs. And there's 20 of them, and there's 6 or 8 of us out in the waiting room standing up. So, yeah, you have to know the circumstances,
Well, February is when all the trailers are due.
The trailers and the truckers, yeah.
So everybody comes in February, and then they have the overweights, which is another different situation that doesn't happen any other time of the year.
It happens.
Any other questions about this? Thank you. It was a good discussion. I want to say one thing before we move on to new business. I care very much about what citizens want. I really, really do. And I lost my cool a little bit earlier, I think, with some people. And I apologize for that. I can be better than that. I'm very frustrated, candidly. Very frustrated. Because I believe that we have done these things. But we'll get better. Thank you.
I think one of the hardest things to learn is you can't control people's perceptions. You have to deal with their perceptions.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing we have to learn is
Yeah.
we might have thought we were doing the right thing, and we might have thought we communicated, but their perception was not that they had the input and the communication. So now we have to deal with perceptions.
Yes.
Intentions aren't always the same as perceptions.
Sure.
Very well said.
You're good, Jerry. You are too, Eric.
What's that?
I said Jerry's good, and I said you are too.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
We'll go to the resolutions then.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 2021-18 is setting non-resident utility rates. We had a discussion about this with the previous city council last year and had some direction to look into it. And what we found is that our non-resident rates were all over the board. We had some people that we were overcharging. We had some people that we were undercharging. Some people weren't being, and it was a problem. We've got a couple of customers that have an agreement that says they'll be charged 1.5 times, 150% of the residential rate, and we need to honor that, which is why we're suggesting as a policy that we basically charge everybody the same. Every non-resident person 1.5 times the normal rate. And that's a recognition that they don't live in the city and pay all the other taxes for the services. And ultimately, it means that everybody gets charged the same, because we had some people being charged more and some people being charged less. It means because we overcharged some people, because we did that in one occasion, or 2 or 3 occasions, we're going to have to offer a little bit of a refund for some of those people, but it's not very much. So that's what this resolution is, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Eric, are you confident that at 1.5 times, that's covering all of the expenses when you consider all the other infrastructure issues that the city has?
That's difficult to answer because some of these are going back years and years and years, and we can't even find. We have one person who is a mile out of town, and that infrastructure was put in, God, we don't even know. So many years ago, it's before mine or Shane or anybody else's memory, and so I don't know what that cost at that time. I have no idea whether it's recovering it. So I can't even really answer that question. Now, I will tell you that if someone wants to hook to the system, they're going to have to pay to do that if you're someone coming in, in the future. And so that's a different question, but as far as these people, I don't know, because we don't even have documentation on what those costs were.
So
This is an equity issue.
this 1.5 times rate, that can't never be raised? That's stuck at that for infinity?
Well, you can do whatever you wish as a city council. You could decide not to do it that way or do it some other amount. There are 2 customers that have a contract with you that specify that it has to be that. So those people can't be changed.
Forever?
Yeah. You signed an agreement that says that that's what they would be charged.
Unless they move, Eric, unless they move from that residency, that probably wouldn't hold true.
It's possible. I don't know, to be honest. That wasn't a nuance that I looked at in the agreement. But the short answer is that this is really, the idea is that you're going to set the rates every year for what you charge for water. And then we're just going to take the non-residents and add, take it times 1.5, and that'll be their rates, ultimately.
And are all these people with water only? They're not hooked up to sewer?
There are some that are hooked to water and some that are hooked to sewer. So this actually, this is for all utilities, not just water. I shed water and I wasn't precise enough. It's for all our utilities. So some have water, some have sewer, some have both.
So do they pay for all of the other charges that
Yes,
city
it would also
residents
include the other charges as well. Yes. Yep.
If the pipes go bad like they are in the city and they have to be replaced, is that a cost that the city will have to do then, or will that be their cost?
That's a good question. I don't think our code. Shane, did you hear that question?
Not exactly.
You might answer the question, but we have a city code that governs who owns what. And I know that from the main to the house, essentially, they are responsible for that. But we're responsible for the main, and I'm pretty sure that in the case of non-residents, it would be the same in our case as well. Unless something is in the code, is there anything in the code that specifies if there's a main
As far as the water side?
or water or sewer for if you could come up here, water or sewer for a non-resident,
I just hear that fan, so.
water sewer for a non-resident, what would we do if their main went bad? Would we charge them for it, or is it our responsibility?
For a resident?
Non-resident.
Non-resident. Well, so the non-residents that we have right now, they have service because we have mains. So we would maintain that main like we would within the city. Because they also supply, some of our equipment. Like, take for example, Highline Road, north of town. There's a 2-inch main that feeds our pre-lube for our wells. That has to be there. So, we have to have that no matter what. That isn't something that we would say the homeowner would have to fix. But as far as everything up to that point, they would have to maintain, their individual service lines. If that answers your question.
So this one that's a mile out of town, whose responsibility is it out that mile?
I don't think we have anything that far, but.
We had a conversation. Sorry, I know you weren't listening to this part of the conversation. We had a conversation about one customer that was out of town, and we didn't know how the water had been that way for years, and we don't know how far it is. And I said a mile, but
I guess our wells are a half mile.
Okay.
The airport's within the city limits. That's quite a ways out there too. But we have one on East Howlett Street that's right at the end of the block. So that isn't very far. I'd say Highline Road is the longest stretch, and say there's a line that runs down the west side of Highline Road that those services for those houses are connected to. So our responsibility would be the 2-inch service line that feeds out to our wells. That's considered the main. Then everybody feeding off that, their lines are, that's on their own as far as if their line breaks in their yard or anything like that.
The short answer is we're responsible.
So yeah, because we would need that. Our wells will not operate without that line being out there. So it's just something that we have to maintain to keep our operation up.
The customers, you said there were a couple that were paying twice the normal rate. Wasn't that maybe something that the city negotiated?
No, actually, those people had a contract that said they were supposed to be paying 1.5, and we've been charging them double, and we don't know why, because it happened before any of us got here. And so that's the refund. We've been improperly charging those people for years.
That's one customer or two?
I think it's 2.
So just a mistake on that.
It's just a mistake. We don't know how it happened. So that's all of our presentation.
Well, I would make a motion or accept the resolution that staff has proposed on non-resident utility rates.
We have a second?
Second.
First and second. Any discussions?
I would also just like to insert that by approving this, that wouldn't preclude us at some point in time if someone else made a petition for water services, that maybe at that time we decide that in that particular case it needs to be double the rate. I don't want us to set this rate forever.
You can set it this until you decide to change it.
guess I'm mixed up here, because I thought you said at least 2 are that 1.5, and we can't change that, so.
Yeah. In
Because they have a
that
personal
case,
contract.
they have to stay the same, yes. But for the other people that don't have a specific,
So the
agreement.
1.5 that you're talking about besides the 2 here, they don't have a contract with us.
That's correct.
Okay, gotcha.
And I think it should be noted that at 1.5 times the rate, I think it's a really good deal for those non-city residents that are getting city water services.
Okay, with all that discussion anymore, are we ready for a roll call?
Tell,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Teagues,
Aye.
Koopman,
Aye.
Landine,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Mayor Corwin.
Aye.
Mayor, the next item is a resolution setting a rate for 1.5-ton garbage containers and also issuing another refund. So we have some customers who have a larger container, and 1.5 tons. And we have been charging them all different kinds of rates. And all of them were over. Almost all of them were over. You set, as a city council, a rate of $60.25 a month for those containers. And we've been charging people all over the board for years. So, because you set a rate of $60.25 and the staff charged them too much, we need to refund those people that we overcharged. That's the first problem. The second problem is that we have an agreement with Southwest Sanitation that we pay them $64.90 a month per container, which means that we've been losing $5 a month per container at a minimum, by setting the rates at this rate, which we don't think is a good idea either, because, we have administrative overhead. We can't afford to lose money on that. So what this resolution does is refunds those people that we overcharged, and then sets a new rate of $65.83 a month for every container per month for people that have those.
Question,
Yes.
this 1.5 ton, is that a commercial dumpster?
Most of the people on the list are commercial people. One of them is like Tracy Housing, for example. The Orchard Lanes has like 3 of them out there.
How about Food Pride?
Food Pride's not on the list, no.
When did we start billing commercial properties? I thought we were only billing residential.
They are. These are residential people for the most part, with the exception of a few in-house. So again, this is another one of these things where we don't know how this happened. We just know that when we moved to the new software, we started looking into it and realized that we had a problem.
Commercial customers, at one time I understood, were being billed directly from Southwest
Right.
Sanitation.
These aren't commercial customers.
Their containers are just about like kind of that size.
They're big containers, but they're not commercial customers. That's correct.
So this, the number that we come up with, or the staff came up with, is just that every year when we do a new contract with the hauler, then we have to change this, or how is that?
So the agreement with Southwest Sanitation specifies how much we pay them. You set the rates as far as how much we charge our customers. The agreement with Southwest Sanitation expires in June, and so that is something we're going to be bringing back to City Council in the spring. As far as we could renew the contract, we could issue another RFP for the contract if you want. But I did speak with them, and I think they're interested in renewing the contract. So that'll be a conversation we'll have probably in a couple months.
So Eric, you said Twin Circles was in this group? Did you say Twin Circles?
Orchard Lane.
Orchard
I
Lane?
said Orchard Lane, yeah.
Okay, so then O'Brien Court, and these are the ones you're talking about. Okay,
Yep.
I understand.
So right now, the 5.5%, that's what we charge above what Southwest Sanitation.
Yeah, that's what the margin is on our smallest container.
So why would we set a dollar amount? Why would we not just say, whatever, we're going to add 5.5% over what we're charged as the cost to the customer? So we're not sitting here getting
by policy?
behind.
Well, you've already set the rates for 2021 previously in December when you did the rate resolution at that time. This is just kind of cleaning up this one line item on that rate. We could do that. I will tell you how our margin got to where it was, and I don't even understand it, but there is a handwritten scribble in there that says that we're going to charge 25 cents, like a quarter, per margin for each container, to the customer over and above what Southwest Sanitation charges us. The problem is that our cost of overhead and billing expenses is well more than a quarter apiece. Why it was a quarter? We don't know. Again, this contract is like 5 years old, and so that predates anybody in administration. And so we don't know. It's just one of those things we've been doing the same thing year after year after year. And so that's why we increased the container fees 3% this last year. And the 5.5% that this margin would be was essentially reflective of that 25 cents plus the 3% that we added. So it's about 5.5% margin now. What is the right margin to make sure we cover our overhead? That I'm not entirely sure. We've never done that study specifically, but I know that we're in a lot better shape now than we were before.
So if we're going to change to the 5.5, we wouldn't be able to do that until we set the new rates, right?
Well, you could set the new rates anytime you want, but I would advise that if you want to have that conversation, we should probably talk about it after we know what our new garbage contract looks like, and then it's part of the new budget for next year. So, yeah, we should absolutely have that conversation in the fall. Yeah. Yep. But I like the idea of setting it as a margin.
It just makes more sense to me, so.
Yeah.
Then you know you won't be shortfall.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. So anyway, that's all the presentation we have. The two items are that refund for overcharging some customers and then setting a new rate of $65.83 a month per container.
How many customers do we have here?
I think it was like 14. It was 12, 14.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe it was 12, 14 containers. I think that's what it was. Sorry, I'm thinking of the containers because some places have multiple containers.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-19 to increase the rates to the $65.83 and that we reevaluate when we get a new contract.
I'll second it.
First and second, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Hughes.
Aye.
Whitman.
Aye.
Howe.
Aye.
Schmidt. Jones.
Aye.
Landite.
Aye.
Mayor Coleman.
Aye.
The next item is a resolution 2021-20, which is the approval of the Phase 382 bids, and I'm going to have Kyle from ISG come up and talk about that.
Good evening again. For this agenda item, we're talking about the Phase 3A2 project area that I think it was about a month ago that the council considered an advertisement for bid. The project had been sent out for bid based on the project plans that were approved, and we took bids last Wednesday. Based on those bids, we had 4 bidders. As you can see in the packet, we have the summary of the bid results, and the low bidder on the project was R&G Construction out of Marshall. And tonight we're here to consider awarding that bid to R&G Construction for that construction contract to be built over the next 2 construction seasons.
That'll run 21 and 22.
21 and 22, yep. So the way that timing is set up is that based on, the contractor will meet with us in the city, talk about the amount of phasing worth, an appropriate number of blocks worth of work that they can get done in this construction season. They'll build as much as they can if they get great weather. Hopefully, we'll hope for that over the summer, and hopefully they can get, a good amount done this season, and then it'll be finished up with the other half to whatever's remaining in 2022.
And they would begin as soon as feasible this spring?
Yep, after talking with them after the bid, if awarded, their plan would be to move in as soon as the ground thaws out and they're able to get started. So that would be their intended schedule.
Any idea, will they start around 5th Street and move west, or west and move east, or what?
Usually they work from downstream to upstream based on the gravity, sanitary, sewer, and utilities. So with this project, it would probably be Hallett Street, Hallett and 4th, and work their way kind of from the northeasterly part further south. That's my maybe opinion. I guess that's kind of for them to determine their means and methods and some of their phasing as well. But that would be a pretty typical way that they would start with that construction.
Will there be a public meeting or an open house where citizens can come and discuss the project?
There's already been a couple meetings in the past on that, but so typically no. But as we starting to figure out these schedules, we'll send out mailers and get an email list together for residents in the project area now, and whoever wants to be on this email update list for regular construction updates that can be on there. We list our information in the cities and the contractors as well if they have questions.
Has it been decided where the staging area will be for the construction materials?
That is to be determined. We will, once the project is awarded, we'll host a pre-construction meeting, and we'll have some of those discussions with the contractor at that time.
Is it safe to assume that it will not be at Central Park again this year?
I think it's safe to assume. I'll maybe let staff take that.
I just mean that you'd have to cross the streets that have just been completed.
Correct, yeah. That city property would have to be authorized by the city, so unless the city wanted that to happen, which I know based on past discussions that we would not likely use a park, I would say no, it's
We had some specific conversations with Donick about that, and I will tell you that we also changed our contract so that, that can't happen. They essentially used our city park as a staging ground and that's not ideal for the citizens. It's an attractive nuisance, and it becomes a liability issue too, because people can get on that equipment, and what if they fall in our park? It's a problem. So no, you won't see that.
And then as far as the schedule for assessing this, probably is not going to have an assessment hearing till the end of next year?
Correct. Yep.
And you guys have worked with RNG before?
I personally have not, but some of our other engineers and staff have worked with RNG. They're a competent contractor that can get the job done. I've made a few phone calls to just some nearby larger city who they're from and do a lot of work for. They kind of said the same thing. So,
what's your guess? Why was their bid substantially less than the others and less than your estimated?
There are a lot of factors that go into that.
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
That's a tough one. I don't know if I need to get too far into it, but maybe that's something we can talk about.
Well,
I will say that I think bidding projects early in the season before contractor schedules get filled up is a great strategy to at least get good bids. And this is, like I said, kind of early on in the winter season here for bidding, and it worked out well. Happy to see it.
Here's it worked out well for the city of Tracy.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all we have, Mayor. You know, we would like you to move forward with this resolution, and know also that RD still needs to give their stamp of approval on it, so this is going to be pending their stamp of approval, but there's no reason why they wouldn't at this point. It's the federal government and they move slowly, and we couldn't get it done in time. But we have to have this approved tonight because we had our public meeting 363 days ago, and we have to award the bid within 365 days, so this is your only chance to do it.
I make a motion that we approve this resolution.
I'll second it.
First and second, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Teagues,
Aye.
Holtman,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Landay,
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye.
Next item is a routine gambling permit for St. Mary's Church.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2021-21, the gambling permit for St. Mary's Church.
I'll second that one also.
First and second, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Tao,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Teagues,
Aye.
Landay,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Koopman,
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye.
The last item is a resolution we added at the beginning of the agenda. It's just approving a match for an EDA grant. You have already budgeted the money for the match. This is just something we are required to submit as part of the next round of evaluation for this grant.
Do they have any rough timeline when they'll let us know if we get the grant?
I don't know the answer to that question. I just noticed a mistake that I got in here too that I need to have you note for the record as well. And that is that it says 40,400 at the top and 30,400 at the bottom. It is 40,400. I think I just mistyped it. So we'll correct the resolution, but please indicate in your motion that it's a match of up to 40,400 is available.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2021-22 to approve the match for up to $40,400 for the EDA grant.
Second.
First and second, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Landay,
That'd be you.
Is it me?
Yeah.
I
It's
couldn't hear.
for you.
Aye. I can't hear you.
Koopman,
Aye.
Teagues,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye. Okay, I got you covered. Jolly good.
Thank you.
Something from the city attorney. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
I don't think we need to take roll call on that, do we?
Can we get a
No,
second?
Somebody second it?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I don't want the job.
Yeah.
You should sit
I'm a
closer.
Belgian. I'm a Belgian. That's all I can say. I'll tell you more when they shut that thing off.